Sutra of Words, Law, and Positivity. Speak positively about others or don't speak at all. Speak as if those you are talking about are right there listening. In today's world, this is almost always the case. Speak positively about others or don't speak at all. Speak as if the people you are discussing can hear your conversation. It's no coincidence that the Gospel says, "For nothing is hidden that will not be made manifest, nor is anything secret that will not be known and come to light." Mark 4:22. It has always been this way, but now especially. We all understand how the modern world works. People communicate more through social media and messengers than in real life, and at some point, they lose control. They start believing they're in incognito mode, yet they are more visible than ever before. It's not uncommon for politicians or celebrities to end up in scandals when their private lives or secret financial dealings become public. Today, all you need is a mobile phone to record any event on audio or video. Tomorrow, things will only get worse or better, depending on how you see it. In modern democratic England, George Orwell's dystopian prophecy of the all-seeing Big Brother is coming true. Every person is legally under surveillance by stationary street cameras at banks, shops, entrances, road intersections, etc. According to one study, the average Londoner is caught on camera up to 300 times a day. Hollywood recently produced a series called Person of Interest, where a special computer program could access any cameras via the internet and identify people through biometric data. What goes around, comes around. Modern communication tools and electronic gadgets only amplify a long-standing truth expressed by the old saying, "Everything hidden becomes revealed." If a friend isn't breathing down our necks in a literal sense, it doesn't mean they aren't doing so figuratively. We may confide in someone we consider close, but who said they don't have their own interests, possibly competing with ours? If we bluntly call them a worm, they'll remember it. If we say that our mutual acquaintance is a worm, this person may pass it on to that acquaintance. So, don't speak ill of anyone, whether they are present or absent. Of course, there are situations when it's hard to stay silent. In such cases, instead of saying you did something wrong, it's better to talk about yourself and try to express your feelings, your reaction to the other person's actions. But only about the person you're speaking to. When it comes to those absent, follow the old rule: speak well or say nothing. Incidentally, this is the full Latin version of the saying. The ancient Romans said, "De mortuis et absentibus nihil nisi bene," of the dead or the absent, nothing but good. Etiquette is far more useful than honesty. The artist Andy Warhol said, "I think everybody should like everybody. We love our friends anyway." But when interests clash, such as in workplace competition, many lose their temper. Only the most advanced can love their enemies. But we don't need to be holier than the Pope. When genuine love isn't possible, we imitate it. For such situations, there's a good Eastern proverb: keep your friends close and your enemies closer. Strategically, this is a very advantageous position. When someone is close, you can see them better, understand them, and predict their actions. A wise leader rewards each employee based on their merits but won't reveal everything to anyone. As it's well known, the best friends can become the most difficult enemies. Judge not others' sins so eagerly, begin with your own, and you'll never reach theirs. William Shakespeare, Henry VI. Don't stir the water if you'll have to drink it. Don't judge others, look at yourself. Remove the burrs from your own clothes first. For your own safety, it's better to keep your distance and maintain a zone of privacy. Don't say too much neither in bed nor during corporate bonding. The world was always small, but now it's more like a university dorm or a shared apartment from the Big Bang Theory. It seems there's no more room for transparency, but we're not done yet. Let's say you complain to neighbor number 1 about neighbor number 2, with whom you have a difficult relationship. As long as you refrain from criticism, the relationship remains merely difficult. But the moment you open your mouth, you make it irreversible. Everything you say can and will be used against you. Your conversation partner may use your openness for personal gain, career or business. There's also the selfless option, spreading gossip just for the sake of it. There's no point in asking someone to keep a secret. No point in repeating "this is just between us" 20 times. Promises are forgotten, what's remembered is the story, the gossip, which can be retold for business or entertainment. The fact that it's a secret matters only to you. If you judge people, you have no time to love them. Mother Teresa. Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should speak good or remain silent. Al-Bukhari. Those who always imagine that the subject of their discussion is right there listening to them win big in life. Because that's exactly what's happening. And that person is very interested in the songs about them. People love hearing about themselves, whether sung by others or by themselves. Diplomats refrain from saying nasty things for another reason: they want to hide their fears and weaknesses. What Paul says about Peter tells us more about Paul than about Peter, said Spinoza. Everything we say about a third party can be attributed to us. People hear our words, see our faces, hear the word stingy, and instantly, permanently, equate it with us. In 2010, Journal of Personality and Social Psychology published a study led by Professor Dustin Wood of Wake Forest University. Peter Harms from the University of Nebraska and Simone Vazire from Washington University conducted a survey where volunteers rated the positive and negative traits of 3 individuals. The study revealed that the volunteers' responses accurately reflected their own characteristics, not only their mental health but also their outlook on life and how others perceived them. The researchers found that a person's ability to describe others positively is one of the indicators of their own positive qualities. On the other hand, a tendency to highlight negative traits indicates antisocial behavior and narcissism. According to Wood, most negative personality traits were found in people who focused on the bad sides of others. There are no great men for a valet, Goethe once said. Not because Napoleon isn't a great man, but because to the valet, he is just Napoleon's valet. Do we really want to become valets? Thanks to so-called mirror neurons in the human brain, every word or action we take is mirrored in the behavior of others. When we show negativity toward someone, we provoke a response of aggression. It can be direct or indirect, and often the latter is worse. For example, if verbal aggression or insults are directed at subordinates, they are likely too afraid to respond in kind, but their internal protest will manifest in poorly done work, and will suffer losses in money, time, or reputation. If you feel like judging someone, remember that not everyone has had the same advantages as you. F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby. A pig will tell the boar, and the boar will tell the whole town. Another important point is that our actions sooner or later reinforce unconscious automatic responses. If we constantly express verbal aggression, it becomes part of our behavioral pattern, shifting to automatic mode, where the brain no longer expends resources on thinking. For example, if we cook the same dish by the same recipe for 1 or 2 months, soon we'll stop thinking about how to prepare it and we'll start doing it unconsciously, mostly automatically. The same thing happens with the habit of displaying negative emotions. Each time we resort to it, our brain automates this reaction and shifts it to the subconscious level. If we've gotten used to bad-mouthing someone behind their back, sooner or later, we'll express our feelings directly to their face with all the consequences for business or personal relationships. Statistics show that 90% of all quarrels and conflicts arise because we speak badly about someone. Those who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones, said writer Robert Louis Stevenson. A wave of negativity generates an answering wave. The wave nature of our positive or negative actions can be explained by the laws of wave physics. The main consequences are drawn from the laws of wave propagation and scattering. Our negative remarks will eventually reach those we're talking about. The closer the person is to us, the stronger their negative reaction will be. The arrow you shoot at someone will circle the earth and stab you in the back. First, remove the beam from your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Matthew 7:5. Besides pragmatic considerations, there is also a purely ethical argument against the habit of gossiping. In direct communication, a person has the opportunity to respond to a remark with a joke or a more serious counter-argument. The absent person is completely defenseless, they cannot reply or gesture. However, this doesn't mean that unkind words won't reach them. People are connected not only in the visible zone. Mysterious threads of kinship, friendship, love, or hatred permeate the entire human world. Words carry powerful energy, they don't disappear, but rather seem to spread through the air. The forest sees, and the field hears, from ear to ear, but heard from corner to corner. The pig tells the boar, and the boar tells the whole town. If the hen knew, the neighbor will too. Folk proverbs vividly reflect this simple truth. The ancient myth of King Midas also illustrates this. As the story goes, the Phrygian king Midas was punished by Apollo, the god of arts, for preferring the musical talents of the forest god Pan over his. He who prefers Pan's melodies to my lyre should have different ears, said Apollo, turning Midas's ears into those of a donkey. Since then, the king always wore a bandage around his head, so no mortal ever saw his ears except for his servant, who cut his hair, beard, and mustache. Midas forbade him, under the threat of death, to reveal the terrible secret. But the servant was so talkative that the secret entrusted to him weighed heavily on him. Unable to bear it any longer, he ran to the river bank, dug a hole in the ground, bent low over it, and whispered, "King Midas has donkey ears." He then quickly covered the hole with dirt. Soon, reeds grew in the place where the hole had been. One day, a shepherd passing by plucked a reed and made a pipe from it. When he blew into it, the pipe suddenly played, "King Midas has donkey ears." Eleanor Roosevelt said, "Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss people." People constantly participate in conversations about absent colleagues, friends, or relatives. David Williams, a successful entrepreneur, aimed to determine the damage caused by gossiping behind colleagues' backs. The main conclusion his research team reached was that gossip and slander destroy trust and relationships within a team. There is nothing more destructive to an organization than this. It is almost guaranteed that unflattering comments will eventually reach the person being discussed, causing a corresponding negative reaction. It's impossible to build a cohesive team when people do not trust each other and constantly question each other's actions. From ear to ear, but heard from corner to corner. If you want to know a person, don't listen to what others say about them, listen to what they say about others. Woody Allen. If people are spitting at your back, it means you're ahead of them. Confucius. Are we all perfect? Of course not. We may do something better today than yesterday or, on the contrary, worse than we did some time ago. Therefore, when a colleague makes a mistake, it makes more sense not to condemn them in conversations with others but to offer your help. Life is complicated. We can never know for sure what will happen the next day or how our personal and professional lives will unfold. Will we find ourselves needing to deal with and depend on those we so lightly criticized today? Sometimes, we unintentionally find ourselves in conversations where third parties are being gossiped about. Others are gossiping, and we stay silent. But as the saying goes, silence implies consent. This is exactly how the objects of criticism will interpret our delicate silence when the information reaches them. Although, with a high degree of probability, they won't learn about our silence. In the game of telephone, details get lost, but the main point remains the participants of the conversation and what was discussed. The object of gossip might always ask, if you didn't agree, why didn't you come and tell me? On the other hand, if we tell the person who criticized them, we risk making enemies among the participants of the conversation. It's a dilemma. So, what can be done in such situations? Why judge others? Think about yourself more often. Every sheep will be hung by its own tail. What do you care about other people's tails? Saint Matrona of Moscow. An unkind word burns hotter than fire. Laura Zigman, a psychologist, suggests that when we find ourselves in negative conversations like these, we should either leave immediately or, if that's not possible, express sympathy for the person being discussed, find their positive qualities, and highlight them to those present. There are different ways of social communication. You can bring others down, or you can lift yourself up. When we speak well of someone, we elevate ourselves in their eyes. It makes sense to admire and praise even those with whom we find it difficult to get along if, of course, there is something to praise. This evens out relationships and creates fertile ground for them. Love for one's neighbor is an absolute moral commandment declared by all world religions. In the beginning was the Word. This is not only a lofty phrase from the Gospel but also an undeniable truth in interpersonal relations. Everything will eventually come out, no matter how hard we try to hide it. The thoughts of many hearts will be revealed, says the Gospel, Luke 2:35. For the Lord is always invisibly near, hearing and seeing everything, the Lord said to Samuel. I look not at what man looks at, man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. According to Christian beliefs, we will all face judgment at the end of time, 2 Corinthians 5:10, where all hidden things will be revealed. I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every idle word they speak, for by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. Matthew 12:36-37. The judge will come suddenly, and every deed will be revealed. This is only one side of the issue. Another important factor is the immediate effect of the words spoken on the person who said them, and calling the people to him, he said, hear and understand, it is not what goes into the mouth that defile a person, but what comes out of the mouth, this defile a person. Matthew 15:10. Thus, even before the last judgment, the consequences of spoken words begin to take effect automatically. What you sow is what you reap. Judging others is always wrong. Because no one can ever fully know what has happened or is happening in the soul of the one being judged. Leo Tolstoy. Do not slander your neighbor, lest you hear something you won't be happy about. The great elders in Orthodox monasteries were especially careful with their speech, particularly regarding the temptation to judge a fellow brother. For every word you speak, the Lord will bring you to judgment. This is a monastic rule, which is observed when each word is considered to have divine significance. If you look into your heart, you will see a real marketplace. So many different thoughts and judgments reside there, most of which are trivial. Therefore, it is much more beneficial to observe your own sins, not those of others. Elder Anthony of Optina. So do not judge your neighbor, seal your mouth against judgment. This is why solitude and silence often become the highest virtues in monastic life. In Judaism, special terminology was even developed to describe forbidden negative speech about a person according to the Torah. First, there is the prohibition against gossip rikalut. This refers to speaking lies about someone that tarnish their reputation. Secondly, there is a prohibition against slander lashon hara. Unlike gossip, lashon hara involves speaking the truth, but it still harms the person being spoken about. Lashon hara, or the evil tongue, refers to words spoken by one person to another that cause harm to a third person. Jewish sages point out that anyone who violates the prohibition on the evil tongue breaks not just one commandment of the Torah but 31 at once. Rabbi Reuven P. Digorsky writes on this subject, "It is forbidden to say anything that damages another person's good name, even if you later claim that you were misunderstood. It is forbidden to engage in any conversations that cause suffering to another person, whether moral, financial, physical, or otherwise. Even if the words are true. Even if they are spoken in a joking manner. They are still forbidden, even if no harm results. For example, if you know that the person you are speaking to won't pass the information along. It is forbidden to listen to such conversations. Anyone who listens to them, let alone accepts them, is as guilty as the person speaking. Don't say about someone else, just listen to what they did, listen to what kind of person they are, foolish, greedy, etc. Listen to how they observe the Torah, they smell of tobacco on the Sabbath, etc. The author, however, makes a caveat that if the information directly affects the person asking about a specific individual, then it is permissible to tell the truth about them. But without exaggeration and without personal judgments. Today, instead of looking for the bad in people, I suggest you start noticing only the good. Robin Sharma. Rabbis specifically discuss the question, is it permissible to speak lashon hara, evil speech, when no one is listening? Rabbi Chaim Vital wrote on this topic. Idle talk leads to many transgressions because even sitting idly is considered moshav leitzim, wasting time, which brings significant punishment. And even more so, idle talk. And even more so, forbidden speech lashon hara, rishalu, a specific form of Jewish gossip, ambiguous jokes, lezanot. Rabbi Yaakov Sofer raises a new question. God knows everything, the thoughts, words, and deeds of every person. Even the words a person says when no one else is listening. So why then pollute the mouth with lashon hara and rishalul when no one is around to hear? And he answers, bad words have a negative effect on the speaker's soul. In Islam, as in other scriptural religions, Christianity and Judaism, great importance is placed on words. Through words, one becomes a Muslim, and through words, one can also be counted among the unbelievers. Muslims believe that Allah gave people tongues primarily for worship, which includes practices such as remembering Allah, reading the Quran, and prayer. Unlike good words that strengthen a Muslim's faith, evil and foul words plunge them into a sinful state. A person who slanders another is compared in the Quran to someone eating the flesh of their dead brother. Do not wrong yourselves and do not call each other by offensive nicknames. Would any of you like to eat the flesh of his dead brother? Quran 49:11-12. That is, the slanderer is likened to a beast or a hyena feeding on carrion. Unpleasant things are only allowed to be said to someone with the purpose of guiding them away from sin. According to a hadith, the Prophet Muhammad said, "Whoever believes in Allah and the Day of Judgment, let him speak good or remain silent. He who has bitterness in his mouth finds everything bitter. The smaller the heart, the longer the tongue. If the hen knew, the neighbor would too." In Buddhism, 2 of the 10 precepts formulated in the ancient Brahmajala Sutra relate to the prohibition of slander. Firstly, do not lie and do not slander your neighbor, and secondly, do not engage in idle talk or spread gossip. These 10 precepts represent a kind of moral code for secular, non-monastic, followers of Buddhism in China. The danger of slander and negative attitudes toward others is also reflected in the folklore of different peoples, especially in proverbs. Do not slander your neighbor, lest you hear something you won't be happy about. The arrow you shoot at another will circle the earth and hit you in the back. What you sow, so shall you reap. What goes around, comes around. Do not muddy the waters, for you might need to drink from them. Don't spit in the well, you might need to drink from it. Ancient folk wisdom illustrates a deep understanding of the boomerang effect. The idea that everything comes back, both good and bad, is also reflected in a Kurdish folk tale. 3 friends were caught by nightfall on the road, so they decided to seek shelter in the nearest village. They knocked on the first house they came upon. The host warmly welcomed them but couldn't figure out who among them was in charge. He asked one, "Tell me, please, who are you to each other, and who is the eldest?" "These 2 are donkeys," the guest replied, "they shouldn't even be sitting next to me." After a while, the host asked the second guest, "Be kind, tell me who is the eldest among you, so I can honor him appropriately." "The print of my foot is worth more than their heads," the guest replied, "they are dogs." Finally, the host called the third guest and asked, "Dear one, can you tell me who is the eldest among you? I would like to speak with him. Both of them are wiser than me, and both are my elders." "You can speak to either of them," the third guest replied. The host liked this answer. "My dear guest, forgive me for delaying you, now please join us at the table." Then the host ordered his servants, "Set 3 tables. On one, place hay, on another, bones, and on the third, all that is proper for an esteemed guest." The guests were surprised. But the host said, "Eat, dear guests, don't hesitate. What you have called yourselves, you have been served." The karmic moral of the tale is obvious. If we speak ill of others, we harm ourselves. Kind words about our neighbors turn out to be a blessing for us.